My name is Aaron Beck, and this is my final presentation for ethnic studies. My final paper is about colonialism and land rights. The history between Asian American and Pacific Islanders show how the impact of colonialization and land dispossession shaped their civil rights and continued fights for justice. While the histories of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders may be similar, their shared experiences have shaped their fight for justice through sovereignty and resistance against the United States imperialism. It is important to recognize the two groups individually to allow a platform for each of their needs to be heard, while also recognizing their individual cultures and struggles. I just wanted to show the many different cultures and backgrounds within the Asian American and Pacific Islander groups, but these are not all the flags. The main points I would like to hit on are Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have both endured racial injustice through colonialization and displacement. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have endured struggles over land. For centuries, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have been grouped together by their similar experiences, however, it takes away from their individual identities. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have created advocacy groups to try and resist these injustices. The colonialism propaganda, white man's burden. The white man's burden propaganda was harmful because it justified colonialism and imperialism by framing it as a moral obligation of white Europeans and Americans to civilize non-white people. It dehumanized colonized populations, portraying them as inferior, childlike, or savage, and erased their culture's agencies. And sovereignty, the mindset was used to legitimize violence, land theft, and cultural assimilation, while portraying colonizers as benevolent. It entrenched racism and white supremacy, the effects of which still impact global power dynamics in marginalized communities today. Trask's statement, "We are not American," is a powerful declaration of Native Hawaiian resistance to U.S. colonialism. In it, she rejects the idea that Native Hawaiians should identify as American, emphasizing that Hawaii was an independent kingdom before U.S. annexation. The statement expresses the view that U.S. citizenship was imposed and that identifying as American erases Native Hawaiian sovereignty, culture, and identity. Trask's words are a call to decolonize and reclaim indigenous identity and nationhood. And movements are deeply important in history of Latino civil rights and education reform in the U.S., especially for Chicanx and Mexican American communities. Here's how they connect and why they matter. The Little Schools of the 400. This grassroots educational initiative in Texas taught Spanish-speaking children 400 essential English words to prepare them for school, while respecting their cultural identity. It was one of the first examples of culturally responsive education, and it inspired future models of bilingual education and ethnic study programs that center community needs and values. The East LA blowouts of 1968. Thousands of Chicano students walked out of East LA high schools to protest racist curricula, overcrowded schools, and educational neglect. This was a landmark moment in the Chicano movement demanding equal educational opportunities and greater representation. It shifted national attention to the structural barriers Latino students faced and led to lasting reforms. Mecca and El Plan de Santa Barbara of 1969. The creation of Mecca and the publication of El Plan de Santa Barbara helped unify Chicanx student activism across colleges. The plan called for Chicano student studies programs, political education, and community engagement. It laid the ideological and structural foundation for Chicanx students organizing nationwide. Why this matters. Together, these efforts show how Latina communities have long fought for educational justice through grassroots organizing, cultural affirmation, and systemic critique. They highlight the role of race, language, and identify in shaping access to quality education and serve as models for student-led activism today. These are pictures of activism back in the day versus now. We have come a long way, but there is so much further to go. These movements planted the seeds for today's demands for justice in education. Their legacy is visible every time students push back against whitewashed history, fight for bilingual access, or organize for structural change in schools. They remind us that education is both a right and a space of resistance. One of the learning objectives that I'd like to go over is students will be able to identify significant aspects of the cultural contributions and social experiences of the ethnic, racial minority groups of the United States. To represent what I have learned, I put pictures of different ways ethnic groups preserve their culture through art, dance, and sharing stories. The significance of this objective is that ethnic studies fosters empathy and understanding. Students gain insight into diverse experiences, helping to counter stereotypes and promote inclusivity. Highlight historical and cultural contributions. It ensures recognition of the vital roles minority groups have played in shaping U.S. culture, politics, and society. Build critical thinking. It encourages students to analyze how systems of race, power, and inequality have impacted different communities. This outcome promotes a more accurate, just, and comprehensive understanding of U.S. history and identity. Learning outcome that I'd like to go over is students will be able to explain how race, class, and gender have shaped the ethnic experience in the U.S. For this learning objective, I wanted to show the 12th strike and how they're discussing different life experiences paved the way for this class. The objective encourages intersectional thinking. It helps students understand that identities are layered and that systems of oppression often interact. Reveals structural inequality. It pushes beyond personal stories to examine how institutions shape opportunity, representation, and power. Promotes deeper analysis of history and society. It moves students from surface level cultural awareness to critical engagement with how social categories define life chances. This outcome empowers students to think critically and compassionately about American diversity and justice. Thank you for watching.